My name is Courtney Hurt, and I am the program manager for NewsMatch here at INN. You probably are familiar with me by now, but I'd like to introduce a few colleagues that are joining us for today's webinar. The first is Cheryl. I'll pass the mic. Cheryl, you mind just giving a brief introduction?
Sure. Thanks so much, Courtney. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. I'm Cheryl Saturnino at the Miami Foundation. I know you might have seen me maybe towards the application period, my name kind of around there, but the Miami Foundation is very excited to be a partner for the 6th year of NewsMatch. So just really looking forward to another year.
Thank you, Cheryl. And Emily?
Hey y'all, Emily Roseman here from INN. I am the research director at INN, so I help lead our annual index survey. Nice seeing you all.
And also sort of in the background is Christina Shi from News Revenue Hub. She's sort of like, taking a backseat on today's webinar, but we asked her to attend just in case there were any questions that you all had about the campaign toolkit or anything like that. There'll be time for Q&A at the end. So we wanted to make sure the whole NewsMatch squad was available. So thanks, Christina, for sort of joining us in the background. Today, we'll be focusing on the reporting requirements for NewsMatch. If you are returning to NewsMatch, you've done this before, you probably know all of this information. There aren't many changes in comparison to last year. But if you are new to NewsMatch, this webinar will be pretty important for you to understand going into your year-end campaign so that you can ensure you're along the way collecting the information you need that are going to make it easy for you to receive your NewsMatch payout. Throughout today's webinar, the chat is open. You should be able to either send a chat to the panelists directly or even share your question with the whole group. And what we'll do is when questions are sort of relevant for the very thing that we are talking about, we'll tackle them there. But then there'll also be, we expect to be, 10 to 15 minutes at the end for us to just ask questions as well. So I'm going to share my screen. All right. Hoping everyone can see that. Can you guys see it? Okay, thank you. Okay, so thank you all so much for joining us today for NewsMatch reporting requirements. Again, on the call currently is myself and Cheryl. We'll be the primarily folks speaking today, but again, there's a point in which we'll talk about the INN index and Emily will pop in. I think the first question we wanted to tackle to make sure was crystal clear to organizations is what you might expect in terms of basically cash from NewsMatch if you fall into one of these two categories. Okay, so the first is small to mid-sized organizations. We announced earlier this year that the National Match Fund, the big pool, is going to be concentrated on and distributed amongst those organizations who had operating expenses below $1 million in their previous year. If you fall into this category, you're eligible to receive the National Match Fund. And again, we're just setting the tone here. We're going to go into each of these in a bit, but you're eligible to receive the National Match Fund, which is a dollar for dollar match. You're eligible to receive partner funds, which are funds in which a geographic-based or interest-based funders, they will create a small pot of funds for organizations that fit their interest area. An example of this would be a Walton Foundation, for example, last year built a fund for newsrooms led by and serving communities of color. And so they had a small pot of money that they awarded to a select number of newsrooms that fit that criteria. The other third thing that small to mid-sized organizations are eligible for are goal-based bonus awards. These are performance-based bonuses where if your newsroom achieves X during the NewsMatch period, you will receive an award of Y. And generally, These are fixed amounts, fixed amount awards. Large organizations are also eligible for those last two, partner funds and goal-based bonus awards. So that just sort of sets the stage, because this change that we've made this year does sort of shift what each type of newsroom that falls into this category is going to be responsible for reporting to us. So I will pass the mic over to Cheryl, who's going to talk about the dollar figures.
Thanks, Courtney. So every year for NewsMatch, there are two different match caps. One is the individual donation cap. The other is a campaign match cap. The individual donation cap is if someone donates 1,000, and this is just purely an example, and our match cap is 500. We're only matching 500 of their $1,000 donation. So that's just for the individual donor. The campaign match cap is what we are capping for your organization. So I'll show the amounts in the next slide, but an example would be for NewsMatch 2020 for last year, the match cap was, I believe, 11,000. So even if you raised more than that, we're only matching that up to 11,000. And so here are the match caps for this year. So for an individual donation, we will match any donation up to 1,000. And then for the total campaign match cap, as of today, October 8th, the match cap is $10,000.
Sorry, a quick note, these two match caps, the $1,000 individual donation match cap and the $10,000 campaign match cap, all applies to those newsrooms that are receiving the big national match fund. Again, this applies to organizations, only for organizations that are receiving, that are that have operating expenses below $1 million in 2020. For large organizations, as well as small, there are two other categories. Remember, we talked about those other two, the partner funds and the bonuses. Here's what's currently available. Currently, there is a funder who is creating a partner fund for select newsrooms led by and serving communities of color. The funder has not yet been named, nor has the amount. And I shared this on the listserv because even though we have these committed, we are still in the final stages of closing a number of other partner funds, and we're making all the announcements for them will be joint. And we're sort of like doing this delicate balance of trying to get you as much information as we can ahead of time, while still finishing out the formalized process of signing grant agreements and grant proposals before everything is published in public. So we're just basically giving you heads up here on that one partner fund. And again, a lot of the pending grant proposals that we have fall into the partner fund category. We expect a number more to be announced in the next 2 weeks. So that's the partner fund. Bonus funds, the one that we currently have available is the new member bonus. And the new member bonus applies to organizations that are either receiving the national match fund or organizations that are receiving partner funds. If you're receiving national match funds or partner funds, the donations that you receive that are new recurring gifts, and when we say new, we mean they are making a recurring gift to your organization for the very first time. We will match the annual value of that gift up to $1,000. So if a new donor begins a $10 a month gift in November, that will yield a match of $120, the annual value of that gift. One question we get commonly asked is, what about for your recurring donors that maybe have started making their gift before November? So for example, I begin making in January, decide to become a recurring donor to your organization, and I start making my gift in January. Come NewsMatch time, will my gift be matched? what amount of that person's gift will be matched. The person's contributions that are made in November and December will be matched, but it will not be matched at the 12-month value. So for existing recurring donations, whatever transactions happen in November and December, likely that's the $10 I give in November, and then the $10 I give in December, that will be matched. Another question that was on the listserv, just putting it here for folks watching the recording and folks that didn't see it, is the new member bonus awarded in addition to the match cap payout? Meaning, does the new member bonus happen on top of the 10,000, or is it within the context of the 10,000? It is the latter. The new member bonus is not in addition to the 10,000. Essentially, you can get to that $10,000 amount quicker when you have recurring gifts because they're matched at the annual value. The other question we get is the new member bonus open to large organizations? Again, those ones that are not receiving the National Match Fund. It is open to large organizations that are receiving partner funds. So if your large organization is receiving partner funds, say a partner funder awards you $5,000 in match funds, you can count your recurring gifts at their annual value to hit that 5,000. If you are not receiving partner funds, if you are a large organization that does not receive partner funds, the new member bonuses you will not be eligible for. I have a question in the chat, and I want to go back to the slide that is going to be relevant for it. The question asks, can the November and December donation, again, talking about a donor who is making a recurring gift for the first time, is the $10 donation also matched? So basically what the question is saying is, if a person makes a $10 donation in November, and then they make another $10 donation in December, are we going to match those two $10 donations in addition to the 12-month value? So is that going to total $140, or is it going to total $120? The question is, the answer is it will total $120. We match the $10 $10 gift at its annual value, nothing more. So it's not double, it's not, double dipped for November, December. It's just the 12-month value. Again, like if a person made their first time gift in December, even though it's not in November, it's also again matched at the annual value. That's a good question. All right, moving forward. I answered that. Okay. So the other question I've received a few times is, how will we know if the match cap changes? How will we know if partner funds become available? How will we know if new bonuses come available? When will we know? So how you will know is via email. We are sending these updates through the NewsMatch newsletter. If you are assigned as a primary or a contact for your organization in your NewsMatch application, you're signed up to receive these messages. I also generally forward them on the listserv, kind of like as a backstop. The other place you can go is NewsMatch headquarters, which is support.newsmatch.org. Cheryl, do you mind dropping that link to where that is? But basically, we dump everything that we've sort of shared. We sort of put there too, everything's searchable, and they're listed there too. You can use the search bar and just search match caps, and you'll see an article pop up for 2021 match caps, partner funds, and bonuses. If you're in a state of panic and you're like, this $10,000, we're grateful for, but we've got a lot more to raise to reach our year-end goal. If you are an organization, a large organization that's really thinking, how do I participate in NewsMatch then? Again, you know, we shared this earlier on in the year, but the way to win with NewsMatch, you know, is really leaning into ways that you can leverage the program to generate local support, both in the form of small donations, which is a given, but also in the form of additional match dollars. So, you know, this is like, I put this chart up really as a visual. Again, these are not actual numbers, but I just want to illustrate, you know, where the different pots of money can come from. We have organizations last year who received the $12,500 from NewsMatch. That was the match cap last year. And then they went to their board members, major donors, local businesses, other philanthropic or institutions they have a relationship with, and raise an additional $25,000 in match funds. So their match pool, you know, is by both what NewsMatch provides in the form of the national match or partner funds, but there's a pot of money that they also built with their local supporters. Then what they do is go to their audience starting November and say, thanks to NewsMatch and major donor X, or thanks to NewsMatch and local business Y, your donations will be matched dollar for dollar. So the way that, you know, the real opportunity for NewsMatch is to really be a catalyst to build those relationships and really hook, line, and sink large donors for your organization. Because NewsMatch is this national movement, you can point to national funders who are supporting nonprofit news as an incentive for these large donations. The other opportunity is because they're able to essentially plug and play to an existing campaign. It's just highly motivating. The other thing that NewsMatch provides to help you in this situation as an incentive is a deadline, right? They need to make this commitment now. You know, we need to know now. You make your large now. There are a number of resources. Yeah, here's a definition of a community match. Again, these are matches that you secure independently to build your match pool. The other question we get are what I secure in community match funds, can it be matched by NewsMatch? No. If you're leveraging a gift as a community match or as a local match, then it is matched by your small donors. It's not matched by NewsMatch, even if it's coming from an individual. We started talking about, you know, how to secure community matches. We had a request to start doing that training a lot earlier in the year, which we've done this year. We did a series of community calls and webinars. But if you missed those, again, support.newsmatch.org. Under the learning section, there's a section called local matches that has a wealth of resources. But there are three I want to highlight if you just need to get going on this ASAP. Okay, the first is one-on-one office hours with Diane Riemann. She is a mastermind and also a very practical coach who's like, here's what you need to put in the email. Here's how you ask. Where are you at? What do you know? You need to find this. She's available for one-on-one office hours. I encourage you, if you're in the process of securing community matches or you're looking for coaching on, you're running up against challenges or obstacles, she's a great thought partner. The other thing that we heard time and time again would be helpful is like a one-pager. So on the support site, there's a basically templated one-pager where you can fill in the blank, and it gives you basically a easy way to sort of talk about NewsMatch with your funder. It's well designed. and it looks good. You send it as a PDF, as an attachment to an email, and it just explains what NewsMatch is. And then there's all these places where you fill in the blank to customize it for your particular organization. The other thing that we've created is a letter, like it's a templated letter of how do you make the request to meet to talk about local matches. You can copy and paste and riff off of this letter. So let me drop that in the chat. Again, all this stuff is on NewsMatch headquarters. So while you're here, I know I kind of did a deviation, but I just wanted to make sure that folks realize the community match opportunities to build that match cap. So now we're going to pivot and just explicitly just talk about step by step what the reporting process is. This year, there's two big parts of the reporting process. The first is the INN Index. The INN Index is our annual comprehensive study of the state of nonprofit news. It is a critical step, honestly, in engaging funders to support NewsMatch. Part of our grant proposals require us to report out data, performance data of how we spent their dollars, and the index provides us with that information. But other than that, outside of NewsMatch, it really drives INN's entire strategy and programs and services that we provide. The second part of the reporting process will be a NewsMatch payment request. And this is the step in which you will provide us documentation and information about the specific donations you're requesting to be matched, or about why and how you qualify for bonus funds. The index is, we're asking all participating newsrooms to complete. The NewsMatch payment request only needs to be done by newsrooms that are requesting to receive the national match, partner funds, or bonus funds. Cheryl, you want to take this slide? I'll pass the mic to you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So today we'll be dropping this reporting guide. So in the next few slides, we're going to be going step by step, exactly what Courtney explained, the INN Index survey and the NewsMatch payment request. It's going to be a lot of information, but just know that even after this webinar, you'll be able to refer to this reporting guide that'll tell you exactly how to do everything when it comes to reporting. Next slide, please. There we go. And Courtney just dropped the guide in the chat. All right, so here's some key dates related to reporting. I would recommend calendaring these. So today, obviously, we're having our webinar, and reporting guide and questions will be available for you to review. In November, we don't have a specific date yet. The INN Index survey questions will be available for you to look over and prepare for. Through November through January, I will be setting up office hours. So if you have any specific questions or need assistance, I am happy to help you. No question is too small, no question is too big. I've seen it all, so happy to help you with that. December 1st. So we are actually opening up our submission window earlier this year. In previous years, we would open them towards the end of the year, which isn't always the best time since the holidays. But we do understand that some people do meet their match earlier. So we're opening that window if you do want to submit early. January 4th of 2022, we'll change the date on there. The index survey opens and you'll be able to submit that to complete participation. And then January 25th is a big date. So that is our deadline to submit the INN Index survey, the NewsMatch payment request if you are asking for funds. And then also included with that payment request in submittable will be a place for you to update your banking information, fiscal sponsor info, if that relates to you, and also any IRS info that you need to let us know. And so once all that is submitted, we spend most of January and February reviewing all these submissions, making sure everything looks correct. And then in mid-March, we expect to disperse the payments to you, always the best time. Okay, so here are the main 5 steps for reporting. So the first step is to prepare your match documentation, and we'll go through these in detail in a little bit. Step 2 is to submit the NewsMatch payment request. Step 3 is to complete the INN index survey. And then, as I said, we'll be reviewing the submission and processing the payments. So really the only action steps for all your organizations will be step 1 through 3. Perfect. All right, so step 1. So if you've participated in NewsMatch before, you're familiar with our match cover sheet. This is the place where you will be listing all the donations that you want to be counted towards match. Can we open that link, Courtney? Perfect. And we've tried very hard to make it more simple for everyone. I know it's not the best template, but I will say one thing different from last year is you do not have to list any donations that are outside of the match cap. So for this year, you only need to let us know up to 10,000 what you want to be matched. Let me go ahead and go through the example, which is the 3rd tab. Okay, so we've listed some examples here of what listing matches might look like. We have a couple donations here that are over the $1,000 individual match cap. And if you hover over the little note in column F, it'll tell you exactly why. Hopefully that helps. We also have a couple donors on here. So I believe Tammy Schneider, who donated on November 1st and December 31st, her total donation exceeds 1,000. So you will see that we cap that at 1,000. So I think it's 750 in November and like 500 in December, exactly. And then we also have examples of recurring donations. So I know that's something that a lot of people get confused on, how to do the math. And I will say, don't worry too much about getting all the math on here correct. As part of our due diligence, we do look over the spreadsheet to make sure all the formulas are correct. So don't stress too much about, if the numbers are correct. The most important thing is that things are listed. Donation source is listed, date of donation, total amount, everything else we can look at. And then the notes column is if you want to let us know something specific about that donation, there's no obligation to put anything there, but that is there for you. And if you head back to the slide, Courtney, I'm going to give you all some examples of documentation. And we haven't done this in the past, but I figured it'd be a good a way to see what needs to be submitted. Perfect. So in the past, all organizations are different. I don't know how you receive your donations, but these are examples of match documentation. So copies of checks, confirmation emails from your donor, or maybe you get that from whatever donor source you use. But at a minimum, we do need to see on the documentation the name of the donor, the date of the donation date. That's how we verify that it was donated between November 1st and December 31st, the match period. And then, of course, the donation amount. And these are all fake documentation, don't worry. And this is another common one we get. So many of you might use GiveGab, Salesforce, other exports. It's totally fine for you to send the raw data just like this. I have the info here redacted just for security, but we would like for you to show everything just so we can make sure, individual donations are not capped or are not meeting their $1,000 cap.
A common question we will get though is about how who sees the donor data, how is, people rightfully so have questions about making sure their donors are, well stewarded and their information is protected. Can you just speak about the fact that the Miami Foundation is the only entity that sees the data and what your protocols are?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So all of this is going to be submitted through Submittable. That is password protected. That info lays with the executive director, whoever submitted the application. And so we ask that all of that information is submitted through that platform and not emailed to me directly. Courtney is correct in saying that the Miami Foundation, we are the only ones who see this, and we do not share that info with anyone else on the team.
Thank you.
Sure.
I've been getting this question a lot about merchandise sales. What subscriptions, merchandise sales, or event tickets count as a donation? I can answer it. You want to answer it, Cheryl, or you want me to answer?
Sure, I can answer it.
Okay.
That's a great question, and we do get that a lot. So the portion of the donation that's considered tax deductible is eligible for the match. You can see here it's typically calculated by the amount given minus the fair market value of the item. And then particularly for events, not so sure if that's happening as much with the pandemic. We do need to receive documentation that the event is taking place within the match period, and that the donation is received within the match period. And that goes with all donations. We can't get a promise for something November 30th, but then get the money January 5th. It has to be before December 31st, on or before December 31st.
For organizations that use things like Eventbrite, they say your event is on November 2nd, which means like all the sales for it are going to be in October before the match period. The rule is that you have to receive the payment within the match period. Oftentimes, Eventbrite doesn't release the payment until after the event has taken place. So that's why we ask that the event take place during the match period. If you have folks who have technically like bought their ticket prior to the match period, oftentimes these event systems don't actually run the transaction until after the event. So technically in that situation, we would match those ticket sales. We've learned a lot over the years of like different nuances and for these questions. So we're just sharing probably TMI, but the other question we get commonly is, okay, we know NewsMatch only matches donations made from individuals, but what if an individual is making their donation through a business or donor advised fund? In that situation, yeah, we will match it. So if you have an individual who is releasing their gift to you through like Fidelity Investments, technically, even though it says it's coming from an institution, it's an entity making that gift, we will match it. If we see this on your cover sheet, what we generally ask you and require you to provide is you have to be able to name the individual, who is the single individual making the gift.
Great point. In the past, when we've
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, that's fine. In the past, when we've received documentation for this, it's usually a letter from like, Schwartz Charitable Fund or Fidelity that'll say so-and-so has donated to your organization. So that's perfectly appropriate documentation.
Mm-hmm. In the chat, we have a question. What do you need from Facebook campaigns? Sometimes you don't get donor names. For any gift that you're requesting to be matched by NewsMatch, we need the following information, including donor names. With Facebook, there are two types of fundraisers you can run on Facebook. You can run a personal fundraiser, or you can run a fundraiser for a nonprofit. If you run a fundraiser as a nonprofit, you do have the option to export a report that provides all the information that we need. It will give you the donor names. If you run a personal fundraiser on Facebook, it will not do that. So we recommend you running your Facebook fundraisers as a nonprofit versus personal fundraisers. If you do run a personal fundraiser, make sure you're following Facebook's guidelines. And there is an option for you to, like the actual post will name the people who've given. And sometimes their amounts, the person who makes a gift may choose to publicly state what their gift amount was. If they do that, you can provide like a screenshot in those situations. It's just really tedious to do that. So we recommend running your Facebook fundraisers as a nonprofit and not personal fundraisers. to get the right data. The other thing you can do, I tell people all the time, if the match cap is $10,000, right, and you raise $20,000, just request us to match the data that's easiest for you to gather information about. It doesn't need to be the first $10,000. You could say like, yeah, I got checks and I got cash and all this stuff, but I'm just going to give them my export from donor box because that's like easier for me to get. So you can select which donations you want to put on here to make your life easier. All right, step 2.
All right, step 2. So continuing with the NewsMatch payment request, which again is going to be in submittable. So this submission window is going to open December 1st if you are ready and have all that info ready to submit. But if not, that's okay. You have until Tuesday, January 25th at 11:59, and that link is going to close on its own. So just be aware of that. So the way to get into submittable, and sometimes organizations have issues with this, it has to be done through the account that submitted the original application. So if there's been turnover or if you don't have access to that account, see if someone can give you that info at your organization. And if you absolutely have no access, contact me and I can give you that email address, one, or if you can't get into that, you can also create your own submittable account. And then we'll get submittable support in to merge the accounts so that way you have access and can submit everything that's needed.
There's a question is if because the window is open, if they submit early, will they receive the disbursement sooner?
No, they're all going to be dispersed in mid-March. It would be just a little too complicated to disperse payments earlier than others. So they're all going to be dispersed mid-March.
Good question. Another question. How do you document cash gifts? Could you maybe talk about how you document it on the cover sheet and then how do you show verification for it?
Yeah, so really that's not our preferred, but if you absolutely have to do it, a receipt. We've had people send in photos of the cash, but some kind of receipt, as long as at minimum, you have name of the donor, the donation date, maybe a letter that they provided saying, hey, this is our $10 donation to your organization, any kind of backup to prove that they indeed donated to your newsroom.
And on the donation source, you would just put cash. Another thing that someone shared last year that was such great advice is on this donation form, like say the match cap's 10,000, right? It might help to put maybe like $11,000 worth of gifts here, because just in case one or two seems really gray, or we're not, maybe not 11,000 is a stretch, but maybe $100 or $200 a little bit over, because if one or two of these donations are in the gray area, it just gives the Miami Foundation a few others to just quickly verify. Yeah,
Great.
that was a newsroom.
Yeah, I also want to add too, as we are reviewing the sheets, it's not, done for. So if we have any questions, we'll definitely reach out to you, maybe ask for additional backup documentation, but we'll keep those lines of communication open if we do need something. Okay, so once you're in your submittable account, remember the same one that submitted the original application, you will get a notification either via submittable or email that will let you know that an additional form is open. So that is a place where you will upload your match cover sheet, upload that match backup documentation, answer a few questions related to the goal-based bonuses and partner funds if that is applicable to you. And then also a space for you to update banking info, fiscal sponsorship info, and IRS status. I also did want to note, I know we've heard from a lot of organizations, especially during the application period, that the IRS is backed up, we don't have our letter. We cannot grant any payments to any non-501c3s. So we do need to have some form of tax exempt status, whether that's through GuideStar, whether it's your determination letter, to make sure that we are granting out the funds to a 501c3 organization.
If you apply to NewsMatch with a fiscal sponsor and then come December, that fiscal sponsorship has changed, or you applied expecting to get your 501c3 and you didn't, and you get a fiscal sponsor in November before the campaign starts. This is the time in which the deadline in which you need to tell us that information has changed is also January 25th. It's a part of the NewsMatch payment request. You'll give us that new information. And that is once after the 25th, that information is locked. So the banking information we have, the fiscal sponsor information we have, those will be the entities that get the payment. So if anything has changed, feel free to set up office hours. You can send us an email as a heads up, but we're going to need you to fill this out to make it official.
Right.
Again,
Going back to, no, you're fine. Going back to security, we do prefer that banking info, fiscal sponsorship info is submitted through Submittable, just because we don't want anything lost through email. Security is very important to the Miami Foundation, so that's why we have Submittable as that avenue to do that.
Again, you can submit your payment request as early as the December 1st. And if you weren't the one to submit your application, Cheryl just mentioned this, yes, you can. Feel free to send us a note. You'll likely also need to work with Submittable, because what they would do in the back end is link, like say the person who applied for NewsMatch left your organization and you don't know their username and password. You'll have to create your own account, contact Submittable, and they'll sync the account. But if you get confused, just email Cheryl or email hello@newsmatch.org. All right, Emily. You're up. So step 3 is completing the INN index survey. Emily, the dates, the window for that time is January 4th through the 25th. Again, newsrooms, you will receive questions in mid-November, but I want to pass the mic over to Emily, who can speak a little bit more about what the survey is.
Thanks, Courtney. And happy Friday afternoon, everyone. So the index, many of you are familiar with it. It's our big annual survey that we send out to all of our members each January. And as Courtney mentioned before, oh, thanks, Courtney. The index is so important to our members and to INN and to the field. It really acts as kind of a compass for the field of nonprofit news. It tells us what support you, our members, need from us. It tells us what to fundraise for. It tells us what kind of programming and trainings to develop for you all. It lets us produce these really cool benchmarking fact sheets we released 2 weeks ago. So I just wanted to kind of hype up the index a bit, and thank you all so much for your continued participation in it year to year. This year, it's really exciting because we're continuing the merge of the NewsMatch and index reporting processes just to make it a bit easier on you and make the whole process more streamlined. So I'm going to post into chat our index survey language from last year in case it's helpful at all for you to get a sense of what will be in the index survey this year, but it'll be much the same as last year. So we'll ask about revenue data, total revenue your outlet brought in, buckets of revenue. We'll ask about your expenses, your staff size, demographic info across your staff. We'll also ask a few questions on audience and distribution data. And then finally, this year will be a bit new. We have a few additional questions on impact, because that was a request from our members, was to kind of start looking at impact of nonprofit news. So I just pasted into chat our survey language from last year. There'll be a few changes to this for the upcoming year that will be available in November. But if you're super curious to see what we'll be asking about, this is a great hint. And then another thing I just wanted to drop a link in about is a webinar I'm going to be hosting October 20th. I just posted the Eventbrite to this webinar in chat. This is a webinar specifically for our new members or for our first-time index respondents. So what I'll be doing here is just pulling up our index survey for 2022 and walking everyone through it and kind of highlighting some frequently asked questions from the index year to year. Jody, the index is going to launch January 4th. So right after the new year, and then it closes a few weeks after that on January 25th. We'll make the questions available in November. Many of our members, what they like to do is in November, we'll send around a Google Doc of the survey questions, so you can kind of start to populate in and start collecting information. You know, a lot of the data you won't have until the end of the year, but there's some questions we ask that you could start answering in November related to like staff size if you don't expect any to hire anyone new, for example, in the last month of the year. You could start to fill in things like that. Okay, so please join me October 20th if you want a really deep dive review of the index. And then I'm going to host another webinar in November, date to be determined, to just be another opportunity to walk through the index with me. If you have any questions on anything related to the index, I'll drop my email into chat.
Thank you.
But yeah, thanks all so much. And thanks for completing the index.
And the other thing that, you know, questions that we get, especially for those large organizations that are not receiving national match funds and may or may not receive partner funds or goal-based bonuses, are, do I still have to do the index? Why should I do the index? And we're asking if you're participating in NewsMatch to complete the index. Again, our NewsMatch performance questions are in the index. So like, you know, questions about like, how much did you raise through NewsMatch? How many donors did you secure through NewsMatch? All of that are going to be questions that appear on index this year. The only questions that appear as part of the NewsMatch payment requests are specific questions to get your cash, like your documentation and your banking information. All the measurements in which we use to measure the impact of NewsMatch, like how the campaign went, are in the index survey this year. So we're asking all newsrooms to complete it. All right, I'm just gonna quickly, we'll quickly just go through step 4 and step 5 so we can open up for any other questions.
Sure. So once the index survey and the payment requests are completed, you've done the hard work, congratulations. There may be kind of a quiet period from like late January to February. Don't worry, we haven't forgotten about you. We're simply just reviewing all the submissions that have come in. So we're just checking the match cover sheets, making sure everything looks correct. If you would like to see where you're at kind of in the review, you can always log into Submittable and see the status of your submission. Or you can also email me. And once everything is good to go, we'll be notifying you in March of the award, any bonuses or partner funds that you're eligible for, and we'll be processing the payments in mid-March. I will also note our offices are working remotely, and I think most people have submitted ACH info. If you absolutely cannot do ACH, we can do check, but please just clear that with me beforehand. Oh, I think you're on mute, Courtney.
Sorry about that. Yeah, that's something you guys can let us know in the payment request to request your payment via check instead of ACH. You can notify us. Are there any questions folks here have? One thing with the little time we do have, I do want to shout out again. I'm going to go to the support site and show that our campaign toolkit is up and live. If you're looking to figure out how you're going to schedule emails and visuals and banner ads for this year's campaign, the roadmap is up. So you can begin to drop those now. You know, we have week-to-week guides of what to do when. There's email copy, there's banner ads, and this timeline and guide, social copy. So all that information we shared earlier this week in a webinar, but if you weren't there, again, you can find that on the support site. If there are no other questions, I think we can sign off. Again, yeah, thank you for putting in our contacts in the chat, Cheryl. You can reach us at hello@newsmatch.org. And thank you so much for your time. Cheryl, Emily, thanks for joining us.
Of course.